I still remember the day my husband looked me in the eyes and said, "I think we should end this." There was no emotion in his voice, no regret, no hesitation, just cold words. I sat there in silence, trying to understand what I had just heard. "End this?" I asked softly. He sighed, as if I was the problem. "Yes, I'm not happy anymore." 10 years of marriage, and that was all I got. No explanation, no apology, just, "I'm not happy." A few days later, I found out the truth. Her name was Lily. She was young, beautiful, energetic, everything I wasn't anymore. At least that's what he made me feel like. He didn't even try to hide it. One evening, he came home late. I was sitting in the living room. "I'm seeing someone," he said casually, as if he was talking about the weather. My heart dropped, but I didn't cry. "Since when?" I asked. "A few months." A few months. So while I was cooking for him, caring for him, supporting him, he was already replacing me? The divorce process was quick. Too quick. It felt like he had planned everything. He kept the house, he kept most of the savings, and I walked away with almost nothing. "Be reasonable," he said during the settlement. "You don't need that much." I looked at him, the man I once loved more than anything, and realized I didn't know him anymore. I signed the papers, not because I agreed, but because I was done fighting for someone who had already left. The day I moved out, it rained. Of course it did. I stood outside the house one last time. The same house I had decorated, the same house I had turned into a home. Now, it wasn't mine anymore. I had nowhere to go, except a small apartment I could barely afford. It was quiet. Too quiet. No laughter, no memories. Just me and the sound of my own thoughts. The first few weeks were the hardest. I felt empty, worthless, like I had lost everything. Sometimes I would sit on the floor and just stare at the wall for hours. I kept asking myself the same question. What did I do wrong? But one night, something changed. I was looking at old documents, papers I had kept from years ago. That's when I found it. A file. His company documents. I used to help him in the early days, before he became successful, before he started acting like I didn't matter. I read through the papers carefully, and that's when I realized something. Something he had completely forgotten. I wasn't just his wife. I was his partner. Not officially, but I had invested money in the beginning. My savings, my effort, my ideas. And buried in those documents was proof. The next morning, I didn't cry. I didn't feel weak anymore. For the first time in months, I felt something else. Clarity. I contacted a lawyer, a very good one. I showed him everything, every paper, every transaction, every detail. He looked at me and said, "You have a case." That was all I needed to hear. The process took time. Weeks turned into months. But this time, I was patient. I wasn't begging anymore. I wasn't broken anymore. I was building something. Quietly, carefully. Meanwhile, my ex-husband was living his perfect life. I heard things. People talk. He was posting pictures with her, smiling, traveling, showing off, like I had never existed, like I was just a chapter he had erased. But what he didn't know was I was about to rewrite the entire story. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. His company started struggling. Bad decisions, poor management. Turns out, success wasn't just his doing, not without me. Investors started pulling out. Shares dropped. The company was weak, vulnerable. That's when I made my move. Through a third party, I started buying shares. Slowly, quietly, carefully. No one knew it was me, not even him. Week after week, I kept buying, piece by piece, until one day, I had enough. The meeting was scheduled. Board members gathered. He walked into the room confidently, still the same man, still thinking he was in control. And then I walked in. The look on his face, I will never forget it. Shock, confusion, disbelief. "You?" he said. I smiled. "Yes, me." The room went silent. The lawyer spoke. "She is now the majority shareholder." He laughed at first, like it was a joke. "This isn't funny." But no one else was laughing. Reality hit him slowly, like a wave he couldn't stop. You can't do this," he said. I looked at him calmly. I already did. For the first time, he looked nervous. "You lost everything because you thought I was nothing," I said. "I helped you build this company. You just forgot." The same man who once told me, "You don't need that much," was now standing in front of me with nothing. I didn't yell. I didn't insult him. I didn't need to. Effective immediately, "You are no longer the CEO." Silence. Pure silence. And just like that, everything changed. I walked out of that room not as his wife, not as someone he left behind, but as the women he underestimated. And that day, I didn't just buy his company, I got my life back.